Hey, if you've got a couple minutes, I would love to tell you the news because in addition to the sad news about Bob Newhart, I'm also going to try and clear up some misinformation about last week's assassination attempt against former President Donald Trump, and we've got to talk about what's happening with the Democratic presidential ticket. So hang out, let this video play, go do something nice for yourself, and let's talk about the news for Friday, July 19th, National Daiquiri Day, which is very well timed. Whoever is in charge of deciding what days are what, they clearly know about the news because it is time for a daiquiri or just any sweet treat of your choosing. We all deserve it. We got here. It's Friday. We deserve nice things. And now the news. We'll start with the unfortunately very sad news that comedy legend Bob Newhart died on Thursday. He was 94 years old. I saw a lot of great quotes from him, but felt like the most appropriate one was this one. There's gratification in making somebody laugh. It's a wonderful sound. I find myself, to this day, doing it, wanting to make people laugh. And he did. He was one of the best at it. Bob Newhart. What a gem. And now we're going to hard pivot. No real way to segue. Although there are a lot of unanswered questions, I wanted to put together what we know so far about the assassination attempt against former President Trump last Saturday, because what we lack in information, people are trying to make up for in misinformation. So why not try and correct some of that? Let's first talk about the day of the shooting. Now, you may have heard that the Secret Service was alerted to the presence of the shooter before the shooting. That is true. At 5:51 p.m., 20 minutes before the shooting, state police told Secret Service that there was someone on the ground with a rangefinder. Though local police did not know he had a gun at the time, information about someone having a rangefinder was still suspicious enough, and so that information was spread throughout the Secret Service team, as well as, it sounds like, police. Trump took the stage just after 6 p.m., and 6 minutes later, at 6:09 p.m., people alerted law enforcement about someone on the roof with a gun. Now, you may have seen an interview on the BBC with one of those witnesses. It is a great interview because the interviewer thinks that he's just going to be talking to a witness. And you can very clearly tell that as the witness is telling him all about how he saw the shooter and pointed him out to Secret Service, the interviewer in real time is like, what am I learning? This seems big. Also, I love that picture because that picture is going to be in history books. That picture with him wearing that visor is going to be in history books. That's great. What a time. Following that, an officer approached the shooter. According to the Butler County Sheriff, the officer had actually made it all the way to the roof from a ladder and had both hands on the roof prepared to climb onto it, but stopped when the shooter turned towards the officer. So all of that at 6:09, and then 2 minutes later, so pretty much right after the officer backed down, crooks began to shoot at the rally. The shooting, as well as the Secret Service then returning fire on crooks, all happened in a matter of seconds. Trump was grazed in the ear, we believe, by a bullet, but I'll talk about this in a minute. Information is hard to come by. And it took about a minute and a half to get him into the car because he was very concerned about his shoes. In videos, he can be heard asking for his shoes multiple times. And then he needed to stop twice and raise his fist in the air for the crowd before encouraging them to fight. By 6:40, the emergency room at the nearest hospital was cleared, and Trump was treated for, and I'm not trying to minimize this, but this is just what it was, a flesh wound that did not require stitches. He left the hospital at 8:50 p.m. It should be noted, and frankly, this is not being talked about enough, that we only know that Trump has damage at the top of his ear because he posted about it. He said that he was shot at the top of the ear. We have not gotten any official medical reports. The campaign has refused to answer questions, and the doctors who treated him have not been made available. This is highly unusual. Now, I'm not trying to say that his condition is worse than he says it is, but I am saying that just as we deserve answers about President Biden's health, answers which, by the way, the public has received, we also deserve to hear official reports on Trump after an assassination attempt. Now, if you haven't been watching the RNC, you might not know that Trump has been seen wearing a large, kind of, frankly, odd-looking bandage over his entire ear. And again, we don't know what happened. We saw the pictures immediately following the shooting, but we have not really seen him since, as far as like what his, I don't need to see it. But I grew up with a nurse as my mom. I'm curious for sure, but like, we just don't know what's going on under there. But that is what's happening at the RNC. He has been wearing a covering over his entire ear. The other thing is that if you have a life and you're not terminally online, as I have been for the last few weeks, you may not also be aware that people at the convention have taken to putting bandages or even just paper over their own ear, which is certainly a choice. We all have choices. That's the choice they made. So that is what we know about the timeline, as well as what we don't know about Trump's health, although that's really like an evergreen question that, again, is not being talked about enough. I talked about this more on the Substack, but we don't really have an idea at all about Trump's health pre or post shooting, even post COVID. We know from witnesses that his COVID was much worse than he said it was, but we never got the truth then. And again, I'm not trying to infer anything here. He appears to have been lightly grazed, and hopefully he's feeling better, or if he's not right now, he feels better soon. But we deserve the truth about his health in general, and also specifically following last Saturday. Anyway, so what do we know about Thomas Matthew Crooks, the 20-year-old shooter? Well, in addition to Trump and Biden, he also had photos of A.G. Garland, FBI Director Chris Wray, and members of the British royal family on his phone. He'd also looked up information about the Trump rally, as well as next month's Democratic National Convention. And then he also looked up major depressive disorder. This is not someone who's going to fit into like an easy to understand box. In fact, not to self-promote, but if you go to listen to my latest interview on Kim Moffitt is a Fan, political commentator Jared Yates Sexton actually accurately described the shooter as an accelerator, someone who just thinks the whole thing is a mess and wants to make change at all costs. Now, early on, it came out that he donated $15 to a Democratic PAC, and then posts debunking that spread very quickly. But it has been verified that he did indeed donate that $15. The PAC that he donated to is kind of known for being very spammy and often having really misleading emails. So who knows what specifically he thought he was donating to. He could have thought he was donating to Biden, or he could have been misled. I don't think we really need to put too much stock into that $15, given that he was also looking up information about the DNC. And classmates described Crooks, who was a registered Republican, as being conservative. Crooks is still being investigated as authorities try to better understand what happened. Meanwhile, it sure seems like the Secret Service had a lapse in their programming. Top Republicans are calling for the head of the Secret Service to resign. She says she won't, with House Oversight Chair James Comer issuing a subpoena for her testimony, and Speaker Johnson noting that he will convene a special House task force to streamline multiple investigations. So that's where things stand right now. Like I said, more questions than answers, but I did want to help kind of try and debunk some of the misinformation that's out there. And of course, the other big political story is, what's up with Biden? That dude's still running for president or what? Well, I guess the answer to that question is, depends on when you listen to this episode. Now, I want to preface this with, this is gossip, hot goss. But according to Democrats, which is how, again, this is hot goss and not hard news because it's just Democrats, not this specific Democrat. But top Democrats are saying that President Biden is aware that it is time for him to stop his re-election bid. And one person close to the president said, quote, "We're close to the end," which is not what you want someone to say when they are talking about the political future of a man where the biggest concern about him is age and, oh no, now he has COVID. Maybe we could have just taken a quick second, reassessed our language. His announcement could come as early as this weekend. Lucky for you, I record on Sundays. That's why I always have up-to-date info on Monday. Who else is doing that? Come on. It is unclear if he will put his support behind Veep Harris. I think he should. I think not doing so is absolutely absurd, but we'll see what he does when he does it. Or I guess if he does, because again, hot goss. Truly, who knows what's going to happen? We won't know what's happening until it's happening. And I think, honestly, even then we'll be like, is it? I don't know. We'll see what the weekend brings. And that's it. That's the news. I am, and I cannot stress this enough, so happy it's Friday. I'm proud of daiquiris and or anything else it takes to just find like a little bit of joy throughout the day. Just get us through this week. But more than that, because you are a lot of joy throughout all the days, I'm proud of you.